Ride one time for your mind. Ride one time for your mind. Ride one time for your mind.
We are here and we are on the coaches huddle. Welcome to the four-man front with my boy Jessie Naylor, Ryan G. Hensley, and Grant Cohn. And this is our third show. We rotate every Thursday. This is my turn to host the show. And a lot has happened since the last time we had a show. We thought that we have been waiting on the biggest news so far, which was Brandon Ayuk getting signed. But in that time, Trent Williams has gotten signed. Deebo Samuels has restructured. The Niners seem to be putting all their pieces together right in the 11th hour. And don't look now, guys, but we have Monday Night Football is week 1. We're ready to go from there. But before we get into our first topic, man, go ahead and guys take the floor. How's everybody doing, man?
I'm doing great, brother. I'm doing great. Glad to be here, man. I wasn't happy about that Christian McCaffrey injury update. Other than that, I'm doing good.
Haven't we been saying this all offseason though? Like, they call it a calf, but if it were an Achilles, they'd call it a calf. So we don't really know. Just saying.
Yeah. But I just don't understand what was it for him to be back right now? Like, how did he just get this again by just coming back, or was this a pre-existing injury that was keeping him back before?
Is it that they have to be more specific and accurate with the injury designations now that we're in the regular season, and in the preseason they can just say whatever?
Yeah, 100%. Yeah. Now they have
can I just point out, not to be a
there.
complete downer to start the show, but like a lot of times when players have like Achilles soreness, it's something that doesn't necessarily go away with rest, and it precedes an Achilles tear. I mean, this happened with Richard Sherman. It happened with Kevin Durant. It happened with DeMarcus Cousins. It happened with Dre Greenlaw. You hear about it, it's lingering. They're trying to take a little time off, and then so hope that doesn't happen, but it's kind of the backdrop to the season right now.
Yeah, I mean, and it's something that's not going to go away. It's also something that we've seen persist in the past. But Jess, how you doing, man?
I'm doing fantastic, man. Ready to get the season going tonight. Thursday Night Football, Ravens, Chiefs. We're here, baby. We're here.
Hell yeah. So Ravens, Chiefs, that's cool. But let's. I just want to kind of get to where we stand. And you talked about. I looked at the recent press conference from Kyle Shanahan today, and he touched on. He touched on basically now the work starts, which is ironic because it's September 5th. But he said that, he was happy that everybody came back, and, it's an emotional high to be able to get the offense exactly where we need it to be. But right now it's about having all 11 guys step in unison and play as one. And he's more focused on getting to the work. Right now, I really don't want to hear that. I mean, they're professionals. I understand that it took them a while to comprise the team, but are they building excuses? I mean, and I guess the biggest question is that where is your grace? Does the team get to start off rusty, and us as fans and reporters alike can say, well, you know what? Hold on, guys. There's context here. Let's let them get warmed up. What I'll do is I'll start with Ryan, and we'll just go all the way back around. Grant will finish it off.
So the question is, are they building excuses for the season already? I'm gonna say no, man. I think what they're focused on is winning the Super Bowl. Now the excuses will come if they need them, but I don't think they need them at this point. The season has started. It's week 1, and my mentality is like it is every season when the 49ers start. I'm hopeful. Now, would I bet money on the Niners going all the way winning the Super Bowl this year? Probably not. Just based on the history, but I'm hopeful every year that it happens. But do I think they're predetermining excuses for the season? I think that's a little rich for me. I'm going to say no, not at this time. I don't think so.
Well, let me just step in. Not predetermining excuses, but what I'm saying is that with the offseason that we've had, with what it took to be with, are there excuses? Are you willing to say that signing Brandon Ayuk late, signing Trent Williams days before the season, Ricky Pearsall going through his injury, CMC not being here, McCaffrey being out, right? Like if you want excuses, there's a buffet, right? That's my point. What I'm saying is, are you going to walk up and be able to fix your plate and pick what excuses you want to make your meal? Or are you going to push away and say, no, I'm abstaining. None of this matters. The season has started.
For me, I'm going to say no. I don't care about it. Now, for the Niners, I would hope that they're not thinking about that either. At the end of the day, I hate saying at the end of the day, but at the end of the day, results are what matters, right? Like, I don't want to hear your excuses. I'm not accepting any excuses. I'm not going to give them any excuses. Just win the thing.
Go ahead, Grant.
Is it your turn? I don't want to cut in front of you.
Go ahead.
I love this topic. I just think it's interesting that like a lot of people, like the Niners aren't really the trendy pick this year to go to the Super Bowl. Peter Schrager picked the Packers. It seems like a lot of people are picking Detroit or Green Bay or Philly to represent this year. And it seems like that hasn't been that way in a long time. Like Chris Sims isn't picking the Niners. It seems like all of Kyle's supporters in the media have been picking the Niners for years. And this is the year that less so. And I don't know what the reason is. Is it because of the vibes? Is it because the team's older? Is it because there's been injuries or holdouts? I don't know. But like, what if the season goes like this? They already have had a ton of injury issues. This is a team that's had injury issues in the past. Last year might have been an aberration. So if McCaffrey goes down for a while, if Debo goes down like he does, and someone has to step up, it's going to be a lot of pressure on Purdy because the narrative around him is, well, he's a product of the environment and the supporting cast. And if he loses 2-3 guys and the offense falls apart, is it going to be Purdy's fault or is it going to be Kyle's fault? Like who's going to, or is it going to be no one's fault and it's going to be like, let's run it back next year, year 9, see how it goes. I mean, do the Niners get to use the injury excuse or is someone supposed to overcome it? I don't know. Who's responsible?
I think for me, there isn't. No, there is no excuses. Like the offseason was out of whack for sure, but that was self-inflicted wounds. The 49ers easily could have offered Brandon Ayuk a lot earlier than August 12th or whatever it was that it was reported. They could have brought in Trent Williams earlier. They knew exactly what Trent Williams wanted. The offer on the table to Trent Williams was 1 year fully guaranteed, year number 2 half guaranteed. And they knew Trent wanted 2 years fully guaranteed. They knew that, but they didn't make that offer until the week of the game, essentially. So you can't make excuses when you're the one that caused this situation to arise. I'm sure fans will grasp for straws and, oh, we can't hold them accountable and it's unfair and you guys are haters and da-da-da-da-da. But listen, the other option is they'll just win. Like the 49ers are a very good team. They know what it takes to win. They have an opportunity, a great opportunity on Monday Night Football against a team that is getting a lot of praise and a lot of hype. I don't think it's deserved, but they're getting a lot of hype. And if the 49ers come out and do what the 49ers do and they get a win and look dominant, all this offseason stuff means literally nothing.
Yeah, but if it's true, what I've been heard that, there's pressure on this organization to it's Super Bowl or bust, then Kyle Shanahan is going to be the one creating excuses because you never want to be in a Super Bowl or bust position as a head coach because you're most likely not going to win the Super Bowl. So what are the excuses that he could be pointing to? Well, the front office couldn't get Ayuk done until the very end. You couldn't get Trent done until the very end. Like I wanted him in here. You guys messed around. And then you throw him back to me with 1 week to go before the season and say, hit the ground running. I'm sorry, that's not football. So there could be certain, and there's Brock. Hey, like you guys say, this guy's going to be worth I know you guys are dying to give him $65 million a year next year, but I hate to tell you, I'm propping him up. And if you take away a couple of things, he's going to look like a $20 million a year quarterback. I mean, your quarterback isn't who you think he is. So don't blame me for all this stuff. There's a lot of blame to go around for why this team could have a down year.
But how can
they might win the Super Bowl?
Okay, but how can Kyle have any of those conversations when a lot of the things that you're bringing up is he's final say? He's got his hands on all of this, right? So as far as Brock is concerned, Kyle, this is one conversation that I don't feel like that Kyle can have about Brock. The whole he's not good enough. He's not really worth $65 million a year, because it's like, you know what? For what it's worth, you totaled the first third overall pick that we got you. You totaled him. All right. And you got an extension and have your job. So for what it's worth, I think that civil war can kind of be quelled. I don't know. That's just my opinion. What are your thoughts?
He was
not all at once.
No, he was addressing Grant.
Yeah.
Specifically, you said Grant.
Yeah.
I mean, look, I feel like Kyle Shanahan is a master at staying employed. And if he's really in a Super Bowl or bust hot seat season and they don't make it, it's not going to be him that goes out. There's going to be, and we're going to talk about scapegoats later, but it seems like you can't just blame Nick Sorensen this year. This is a big year for Brock. He's in a contract year. He's trying to prove that he's the future of the franchise, and he should be the ultimate investment. Kyle's in year 9. I mean, year 8. I don't know, man. If they lose in the first round of the playoffs, is it? I mean, look, they lost in the Super Bowl, and you had Chris Sims blaming Brock Purdy. Chris Sims is Kyle's guy.
That's facts. That's facts. Yeah.
So what if it's even worse this year? What if they miss the playoffs, or what if they lose in the divisional round? Like, who do you think Chris Sims is going to blame?
He's going to blame Brock.
Who's he going to blame?
He's going to blame Brock.
So,
all right.
You got to lay your excuses out just in case you don't win the Super Bowl ahead of time. I mean, this is what I did, and I've been a head coach in the NFL for a very long time. I'm just speaking from experience.
I got you. I mean, I understand where you're coming from. I do believe that staying hired, there's a game within a game to staying hired versus winning a Super Bowl versus pleasing the front office. So Kyle wears a lot of different hats in that. And so far he's shown to be very good at basically staying hired. Let's get to a couple of super chats before we move on to the next topic. Gamer Brown, $2. Thanks. I want to know why Ryan is holding this stream up. It was not Ryan.
The first one here. He was literally
the first one there. Brother Bob, anti-Kyle Levy. This is why I drafted Jordan Mason, because I figured, yeah. CMC being hurt, man. I mean, is this? Let me put it like this, and I don't want to steal this take because I saw this in the chat before I brought this up. But is this the fallout from a 400+ yard carry season? I mean, is this? It's got to go somewhere. Right. And we use Christian. Let me just hide this real quick. We use Christian at a very high clip. Do you see, Christian needing to be like really paced out this year due to the fact that he was used at a very high rate last year? Is he back?
It should have happened last year. We talked all about it all last year. We were like, man, you should probably chill out on Christian McCaffrey. Like, you guys were up by 3 touchdowns late in that game. Why is he carrying the ball? Do we really have to get 400 touches out of him? Those conversations were happening all last year. So, yeah, I mean, I think that it's very plausible. They're not. You're probably right. They're not going to have a choice, but it is plausible that if an injury happened, that it is a wear and tear. We saw this in Carolina. He had 2 years where he had a ton of touches and he got injured, and then it took him 2 years to get back. Well, now you're 28 years old. You're coming off of another season with a ton of touches. Not necessarily ideal. Now, the good thing is Jordan Mason's here. And I would say the other good thing is half this panel, at least, believes that he's less important than George Kittle. So that should be all right. Go ahead, Ryan.
Oh, you are so petty. You are so petty. You're so petty. I still believe that George Kittle is worth more than this offense. He's worth more than this offense to CMC. I really believe that.
If CMC, let's go with that then. If CMC tears his Achilles this year, is out for the year, can they win the Super Bowl without him?
Yeah.
No, absolutely not. No.
What? Why not?
I'm not getting into it again. Ryan, go ahead. What were you going to say about the touches being injury prone, or possible leading to injuries?
I think they can.
I think they can.
Will they be able to run the ball? Yes. Will they be able to pass the ball? Yes.
I'm just saying.
Yes.
I think CMC is really good at what he does. One of the best in the NFL. But I think the 49ers have always had a decent run game under Kyle Shanahan. I think they'll be okay.
I mean, the check down game won't be what you know.
Right. I mean, yeah. That's it. Like the check down game, we may have to get a little bit more. We may lose a little bit something on offense, on outside zone. I mean, I don't mean to diminish his skill set like that. He's a one-of-one player, but he's getting older.
Now Jordan Mason hasn't proven he can be like a bell cow for 17
proven anything.
games.
That's true.
He hasn't proven maybe he goes down too. I don't know, but at least McCaffrey's excellent and proven. But I don't know. I mean, Bobby Turner's been doing this with nobodies since I was 8, 7, no, 2. I don't know. I don't know. But if you don't have that blocker at the point of attack, a tight end, I don't know.
I think honestly, Trent Williams, Brock Purdy, Fred Warner are the 3 guys that they can't lose. Outside of that, if one of them goes, I think they can make do.
You're on your own, Jesse. So
That's totally fine. I mean, the proof's in the pudding. Like I said, 18 points leading into him being traded. And let's not forget
this year.
The 9 games before the year prior. Go look at the 9 games prior the season before. They could hardly score over 20. Like it wasn't just the first season.
That's true.
The season before this started to show itself. So I mean, I don't think it's coincidence, but we'll see.
He came here and completely revolutionized what was a very predictable and stagnant offense. That is the truth.
Hey, look, they can't win the Super Bowl with him, so it's possible they can't win without him either.
There you go.
You know what I'm saying?
So, I think it's, to be fair, like I do also believe if you said, okay, let's remove CMC. Can you win a Super Bowl without Trent? No. Can you win a Super Bowl without Kittle? No. I think they need all of these guys to have a chance at winning a Super Bowl. If they lost Debo, Ayuk, any of them, Purdy, they're done. They're done, man. They need them all.
Yeah.
I understand. I mean, I really want to argue with you, but let's just move on. So Manhattan John, 1999, thank you. No excuses. Kyle has had the team for 6 years with total control. The salary cap cliff is coming. Yeah, the salary cap cliff is coming, and he needs to deliver whether he has CMC or not. You got Trent Williams back, and you got to cook, Kyle. I understand.
Manhattan John is actually just Parag.
Yeah.
Jed York. That's
Brother Bob.
Apparently how
he feels. Yeah, that's exactly how they feel. Like, get it done.
Yeah.
Brother Bob, thank you. Whatever, Grant, it's never Kyle Levy's fault ever. Gammon Brown at coach who's wearing the best hat. These other guys are putting money into their headgear, but we know you have the better sneaker game. Yes, I'm currently.
My Nikes are in the mail. Can't wait to show them.
I'm wearing some breads right now.
Nice.
All Niner 49, all Niner 499. Thank you, Grant. Ask Kyle a question. Ask Kyle a question. Everyone else, objection, Your Honor, badgering the witness. Hey, man, Grant, you are a force, my man. You strike again and again and again. And I
sat there for 12 minutes and thought about, how do I ask this question? What is the proper wording for this question? Because I wanted to ask, why don't you go to the emergency room? Why don't you go? And like that feels like a very like in your face question, which is like, it's a sensitive subject, but I still feel like the topic was worth an answer. So I asked, I thought it was a generous, like, did part of you want to drop everything and go with John to be with Ricky?
Yeah, your exact wording was, I think people hear what they want to hear.
Yeah.
It wasn't, why didn't you drop everything and go see Ricky Pearsall? It was,
Did part of you want to?
Did part of you want to? Because obviously you didn't.
Like,
and
obviously there was like something you had to weigh. Like you were conflicted. I'm certain of it. So maybe I could have said, like, could you explain that inner conflict? Or I don't know. I felt like it was anyway. I don't want to make this about that, but that's what I was thinking, and I don't think you appreciated the question. And okay.
Nah, I mean, he juiced it up. Like, he was like, I can't worry about people like you criticizing me. And it's just like, dude, you're a head coach. You make millions of dollars to play a child's game, and something in real life happened, and you got to get a little bit of pushback or just some questions on a real life event happening. It's really not that big of a deal. So, you didn't get shot, Kyle. So let's just move on to the next question.
He had an answer.
Yeah, he had an answer.
He had an answer.
Yeah, he was ready.
Yeah.
So moving into the next topic, there was a report from Matt Burrows, and there's syntax to this report that I want one of you, well, Grant, honestly, to touch on. But based on a report from Matt Burrows and the roster improvements, by his words, this is the strongest 49ers team that he's seen since he's been covering the team since 2001. Right now, I'm just going to ask flatly, with this version of the 2024 Niners going into the season, I can't be disingenuous. We know this is not the best team we've seen. Where does it rank? Where does this team rank for you, juxtaposed to the previous teams that we've had and the field? Versus, we felt like last year's team was talented, but we really felt like last year's team was in their window because the rest of the field was so mediocre. It was a down year for the NFL, right? So where does this team rank versus what you've seen before and how it affects how it's going to fall on this year's NFL? I'll start with Jessie.
Well, I think the context is Barros has been covering the team since 2002. So we're talking about the whole Harbaugh era. We're talking about the whole Shanahan era. And he said this is the most talented roster. Now, most talented roster does not mean best team. We found that out in the Super Bowl last year. We all know this, okay? But on paper, he feels it's the most talented roster.
On paper.
On paper. I was a little befuddled because I simply retweeted it and said, hey, I think this is definitely debatable. And people were like mad, so mad that I even said it was debatable. Like, how is it debatable? It is the best roster. And I'm like, I don't know. They've made it to 3 other Super Bowls and 7 NFC championships. It's not even debatable. Like, that's crazy to me. And so the team that I would say I think was the best was the 2012 team. And the reason is it was built how I would prefer to build a team. It had a way better offensive line, not even close. They're not even in the same stratosphere. It had a better front seven. Now, the secondary wasn't as good. The skill players weren't as good. And I know that everybody loves Brock Purdy and all the stuff. And we act as if we haven't seen good quarterback play since Steve Young. But we're talking about a 1-year window. And I will say this, what Colin Kaepernick was able to put together during that playoff run is better than anything we've seen since. It just was. It was special. So for that 1 year, I get Kaepernick after that, maybe regress and, all the stuff. But for that 1 year, we're talking about an isolated team, 1-year window. Colin Kaepernick was that freaking deal, man. He took over games in a way that nobody since him has. So you add that in, and let's also not forget special teams. This team on special teams had Ted Ginn and David Akers, man. What do they have that's even close to that right now? I believe the 2012 team was better. It is debatable. It is obviously opinion, but I think the people that say it's not debatable, even worth a conversation, I think that's disingenuous.
Go ahead, Grant.
Maybe on paper, this team is the best. You could argue it. I like Jesse's argument for 2012, but I think the story with this team isn't what they look like on paper. It's not, and I'm not going to use the word vibe, but there's something off with this team. And it feels like they're either burnt out or they're old or they were hungry last year. Do they seem hungry this year? It seems different. It's like everyone's been paid except for Purdy and Lenore and Jair Brown. Everyone else has been paid. But like in 2019, I mean, Debo hadn't been paid. Bosa hadn't been paid. Warner hadn't been paid. It was a very hungry team. Last year had a ton to prove. This year, it's like they seem a little fat and happy and old and injured. I don't anticipate this being a 14-3 season. Maybe I'm misreading it. I don't know. I feel like more like 10-7, 11-6.
I want to say this. There's a comment that says, let's not forget Kyle Williams was muffin punts. That was 2011. I'm talking about 2012. We're not talking about Harbaugh's run of 4 or 5 years versus this run. We're talking about an isolated team in a time capsule of one season. 2012 had Ted Ginn.
And the reason why the window is open is because we're going from Matt Burrows' tenure of covering the team since 2002. So that's the window.
Let me give my take.
2005 Niner team was way better.
I agree with Jesse here. I mean, listen, I'm going to read off some names. Navarro Bowman, Patrick Willis, Hall of Famer, Dante Whitner, Alden Smith, Deshaun Goldston, Justin Smith, Ahmad Brooks. I mean,
Joe Staley.
Colin Kaepernick, Frank Gore, Delaney Walker. Like,
Yeah.
I mean,
Please start
come
naming the
on.
offense.
Read off
Please
the
name
whole
the
offensive
offensive
line.
line.
Delaney,
I was about to
Joe
say, you're
Staley.
not naming the offensive line.
I haven't even started yet, right? Joe Staley, Anthony
You're potty.
Davis, who I got in the funk with, was a hell of a good player. I mean, this is not even, I mean, to me, the best team that I've seen on the 49ers since the Super Bowl winning teams was 2012. Now, this team is very, very good, but like right now, looking at them, they haven't done enough for me to say that.
The 2011 team was so good too. I mean, God, that team was so good. Even with Alex Smith, they should have beaten the Giants. That was, I mean,
that was
the way
bullshit
they
game.
lost that game is crazy.
The only
ending was
offensive
ridiculous.
lineman today that would have started on that team is Trent Williams.
Trent.
The other four starters would have come from 2012.
Yeah.
And it wouldn't be particularly close. Mike Upati, Jonathan Goodwin, Alex Boone, Anthony Davis.
None of the
kidding me?
safety this team could play on that team.
If
The defensive line was
had,
only Nick Bosa.
if Harbaugh had prime
Only-
CMC on that team, Gore still would have started.
Fred Warner's not starting on that defense.
The defensive line, only Nick Bosa is starting on that defense.
Yeah, I hate to put it to you. Fred Warner's not starting on that 2012 defense. It's
Like
not happening.
Christian McCaffrey, great player. He would have been the change of pace back for Frank Gore.
He would, yes,
Sorry.
he would have been a third down. He would have been a third down specialist back. Like back then in 2012, CMC would have been on the same ilk as like Trunk Candidate and like Warwick
Nothing
Dunn.
against CMC. Like they were running power though. Like they wanted Frank Gore's. This is a different style offense.
Did you guys
Right.
see that Harbaugh put like a 300-pound fullback?
Fullback.
Love it.
It's
Will
like
Tukwuafu?
300
Demarcus Dobbs?
He's a
Yeah.
big ass dude. Yeah.
I love him, man. But I don't want to deviate though, guys. So let's get back to let's kind of shrink down the window then. So let's go with this regime, right? We know that this team isn't the best that we've seen out of this regime. We can all agree with that, correct? Out of the Kyle Shanahan teams, would you say where would you rank this roster?
I think
Within
it's right
the
there
8
with
years.
last year. I think it's right there with last year. I really do. I think they're pretty close. I think it's very
Old
similar.
though. It's the oldest team they've
True.
had. It's the thinnest team they've had. On paper, it looks great, but I mean, don't you have to factor that in? Like McCaffrey has a calf injury, and it hasn't really gone away yet. It's been lingering for a while. Like that's scary. Trent Williams is 36, hasn't practiced at all.
Do you think
Kinda
our
scary.
2022 defensive line could handle this O-line? Come on, man.
Oh my
know.
God. What the 2012 defense would do to this front would be, I mean, God. Who would block Justin Smith?
Nobody's
What would
blocking the
Cole McKivitt
Cowboys.
do against
Nobody
Alden
could.
Smith?
Nobody could. No.
No.
Trent
I
would be
mean,
the best.
Alden Smith used to beat Trent Williams' ass back in the day. Go back and look at 2011, 2012. Like,
Used to
Alden
dog
Smith.
Trent Williams. Used to dog Trent Williams.
and Trent Williams
Yes.
after the game would be like, I mean, that's Alden Smith, dude. Like, what
There's
do you want me
nothing
to
I
say?
can
He's
do.
Great. Yeah.
Go look at the 2012 year when the Niners came here. They played Washington here, and look at what Alden Smith did to Trent Williams.
Yeah. Yeah.
It was an easy day.
Yeah. I saw
so-
someone on Twitter say that Trent Williams is the greatest left tackle of all time. Is that true?
No, like
Three-time
that.
All-Pro?
All right,
No.
look, bro. I know that I am an offensive line guy, and I spend a lot more time criticizing Trent than I do praising him. And I know it's crazy, but I feel like because of what the game is today, Trent gets a lot of like Paul Bunyan like lore. You know what I'm saying? Like, look at him throw these guys around. He's a linebacker, guys.
Yeah.
Look at Trent throw this guy out of the
corner.
club. That's
corner.
a corner, my man.
Yeah.
That's a corner. Like, look at what he's doing to that defensive end. He's pulling the shelf. That's it. He's taking his leverage and throwing him to the ground, guys. Like, Trent's very talented. Trent is one of one technique, but the game fell nicely into his skill set.
Sure.
When Trent Williams was playing in 2010, all right, in 2012 and 14, where you had defensive ends that were 300 pounds, okay, and when you had real three techniques, Trent was good. But he was on his way out to
Trent
league.
All-Pro in Washington.
I don't know. I want to say like maybe 3 times. Maybe
He
3
was
times.
never an All-Pro in Washington.
Are you
He's been an
serious?
All-Pro 3 years in a row with the Niners,
Well,
where
he's
you
never.
get a lot of credit for being on a great team, but in Washington, he was never an All-Pro.
I don't. Listen, I've talked to you about my own story with Trent being here in Washington. Like this like oak like leader that is like an immovable like mountain, this articulate just bastion of balance and like that was not. He turned all of that on for us because Washington got none of that. Washington got a completely different player that was not ingratiating himself with the media. He was not talking about how the coaching staff was like his part of his family. He said Kyle was like family. Like, what? Like, what are you? I mean, look, we get it. Kyle they drafted Trent. They left Trent. And he got left with a lot of different coaching staffs. And in certain ways, Trent feels as though that he owes Kyle his life because he pulled him out from under the doldrums and traded for him. And then on top of it, made him the highest paid guy at his position. And he's indebted to him. I get it. But listen, man, the league is not what it used to be, bro. You know what I'm saying? It's just not. It's a different league. But to just close this out, give me your theory, Grant, on why you think this report is coming out. Because there's a tinge of bullshit with this report where it doesn't necessarily track.
I don't know. I don't know why Barrow said it. Maybe he believes it. Sure he does. But it just seems like there's the national view of this team. Again, I don't think the national analysts are as high on the Niners as they were the last couple of years. And the local view of the team, which is this is actually the best Niner team yet. And to me, the local perspective really reflects Jed's perspective. And I think what Jed wants to convey is like, man, we are all in. We got Leonard Floyd. Like we spent hella money this offseason. We're freaking all in. This team is legit and no excuses. Whereas national perspective, which may be more influenced by Kyle, is like, well, yeah, but we got these guys in late and it's kind of an older team and Brock isn't necessarily proven. So I feel like more and more, I mean, we heard it, David did it too. Barrows they're both in the Athletic. David went position by position and said the team is better than last year. The only one that's not positioned that isn't better than last year is linebacker because Greenlaw's hurt. So eventually linebacker will be better, like across the board better than last year. So that's how the Athletic's approaching it. Like, it's interesting. I don't know. I just feel like NFL Network doesn't feel that way.
I don't really think they're worse than last year, really, honestly. I mean, Greenlaw's hurt and Huff's hurt, but those guys are coming back. Pooney is an upgrade. The only thing that would make them worse would be age, like you said.
But they're a year older. Right? Like Purdy says, like, oh, I mean, Lombardi says, like, well, Purdy's going to be, like, the quarterback room is better because Purdy's improving. Sure. Well, what about all the guys who are a year older and a year worse?
Could be.
That's facts.
Trent, George,
Could
Christian,
be.
Debo.
We don't know what this looks like yet. This is their first time playing together since the Super Bowl. Like this yesterday was the first practice that they were all played together for the first time since the Super Bowl. Like, it's got to come from somewhere. Like, it's not necessarily wanting them to be bad, but it's like being pragmatic about it. At some point, you know, what are they going to look like? And to say that they're better than last year right now, I got to hear it, Ryan. How do you square that?
Well, I mean, you could look at it by position group. I think Dobbs is better than I don't know why he's QB3. I think Dobbs is better than Darnold. I think Jordan Mace is improved. Now, again, I can't predict what's going to happen with these older guys. If Christian McCaffrey's beat up and washed now because of his cap, that's a different matter. But I like the halfbacks. I mean, fullback is the same. Tight ends look slightly improved, not great, but slightly improved. Depends though on Kittle. Is Kittle better, or has Kittle fallen off because of his age? I don't know. Offensive line, it's the same offensive line. Trent Williams might be older and worse, but you just added Pooney. That's an improvement. You know, you got Debo Samuel, you got Brandon Ayuk. Brandon Ayuk still hasn't even peaked yet. He's entering his prime. Jawan Jennings is the same thing. He's not peaked yet. And then you added Jacob Cowan and all these other receivers. So in that regard, Brock Purdy's full offseason. I think he'll be a little bit better. And then on the defense, I wasn't big on Armstead. So you add Collins into that group with Nick Bosa. I think Leonard Floyd's an improvement over Chase Young. Again, linebacker, though, the drop-off of Dre Greenlaw to Campbell, I'm not sold on that yet. Hopefully that comes back and it's a non-issue. Then you added Renardo Green to replace Ambry. You added Yao Yeedham not Yao Yeedham. That's one of my clients.
Yeah, the guys that got him.
That's one of my clients. Shout out to Yao. I love you, man.
Yao Yeedum.
Isaac Yeedum is I have a client named Yao Yeedum. So Isaac Yeedum is an improvement. Like the corners are better. I mean, they're as good, if they're as good as last year. They're probably not as deep. But outside of losing Dre Greenlaw, I think they're gonna be just as good.
I mean, I hate to do it, Ryan, but you just stepped in it. You said they're probably not as good, but they're not as deep. The part of them being good is their depth.
Sure.
So I don't think we're as good as we are last year. Right now, offensive line is an upgraded guard, but I'm kind of looking at Jake Brindle. Jake Brindle is coming back. He was hurt, paced through. Aaron Banks did not have a good camp. He just didn't. And maybe it was because he was nicked up throughout camp. I'll give him that, but it remains to be seen once the ball rolls out on Monday night. And I understand Malik Collins actually showed me a lot in the 2 preseason games that he played, but we have to see what this depth is going to do. And don't look now, but we still do have one whole side of our edge still nursing injuries, right? Isn't Yatir Gross-Matos still week to week? Is he back yet? No, he's not.
Sure. That's so injury and depth. That's a different thing. And age, right? Like these guys, the older guys, if they're older and not as good because of it, I can't see that yet on paper, right? But that's an assumption. But I'm just saying, like, it's a lot of the same guys, and I like some of the pieces they popped in. The biggest loss right now is Greenlaw, but hopefully he comes back and gets back to his own ways.
Maybe I'm just cynical. This feels like a team that's going to have injury issues. It's already having injury issues. It's the oldest team in the league, and they've played 60 games the last 3 years.
I mean, and we got away. We had remarkable health last year. We had remarkable health.
It's not something you can predict. I don't know.
I do think it's fair to separate though. Roster versus team. Roster is on paper, and I think when you go through player for player, this roster is probably better than last year. That doesn't mean it's a better team though. Because being a better team means you have to prove it on the field. We're talking about hypotheticals, just player for player. If you go down, how many check marks do you give to this year's team? How many check marks do you give to last year's team? I think you give more check marks to this year's team, which means the roster is better, but the team is not necessarily better. They haven't rolled out the football yet. They haven't done anything. We don't know how good the team is. The roster, I do think, is better, though.
Also, frankly, real quick, the issue with this team the last couple of years hasn't been talent. They've been good enough to win Super Bowls the last couple of years. The issue has been finishing. And, I mean, you can blame who you want, but that's been their issue. It hasn't necessarily been like talent on paper. They're the most talented team in the league. They have been. They probably still are, even if they're not better on paper. You could argue one way or another, but they're still the most talented team in the league. They're just very expensive and getting old, and it's like I like the distinction you made, Jesse. Talent versus a team. This team is being tested right now. See how tight they really are.
Yep.
All right, guys. Let's just get into a couple of more super chats. I don't think we have many. Just go ahead and knock them out real quick, and we'll get into our next topic. Gamma Brown, $2. What's preventing the Niners from a Warriors legacy?
Championships.
Actually winning.
Yeah, literally getting the championship. Manhattan John 999. Thanks. Run 2020 Niners. You can't handle the 2012 Niners. That's true. Pimp Game Arnold Palmer. I love that name. Fred Durst looks like he's aged 8 years since the last Super Bowl loss. Keep up with the good work, guys. Get your popcorn ready. He said that you look like Fred Durst, Jesse?
I get that a lot. And then when I don't wear a hat, I look like Tim Tebow.
That's facts. I can't unsee it now. Gammon, $2. Thanks you. At Grant, I have the same stock background on stream. I think Grant is the only one. No, Grant, that's a real background.
That's a real
background.
I'm
in the East Lounge at Levi's.
Say on location, just a stunt.
I'm on location. I'm not raising the roof. I'm being professional.
Too much sauce says, any chance Niners franchise tag Brock next year?
No, they don't have to. He's under contract.
They don't have to.
They don't have to do it.
Yeah. No, they're going to play hardball with Brock until the very end, and then they're going to give him everything he ever wanted.
We know how this goes.
Give him the entire chocolate factory and the Freight glass elevator. They can go any direction.
Yeah. All right. Topic 3,
and
guys.
One Direction.
Topic 3. So we already know that Kyle is Kaiser Sose, so he's never going anywhere. But we always know that nobody gets out of the season unscathed. So last year, I called it. I called it. Grant is my witness. I called this in months before the season started. I said, Steve Wilkes is going to get scapegoated. He's going to be the guy that it's all going to fall on to make this stinky turd of a loss in the Super Bowl go away. And when it finally happens, they're going to roll it out game by game, and it's going to be persistent. They're going to create a little paper trail. So when they finally go to slaughter the GOAT, there'll be enough people to say, yeah, what about that Minnesota game? And what about the Cincinnati game? Like, he should be gone. Get a couple of players in there. We weren't prepared. And there we go. The end of the season, basically, for us to kind of have closure on the season, I don't think there's anybody that would disagree. The closure on the season was, hey, man, we lost. But at the end of the day, man, Kyle had to spend so much time getting Steve Wilkes prepared. He really didn't have enough time to really focus on the team, not only as an offensive coordinator, but as a head coach. Steve Wilkes necessarily didn't galvanize the locker room. Then proof of concept, you had some of the players come out. Nick Bosa spoke about it. Eric Armstead spoke about it. He just wasn't our guy. Goodness gracious, even stomping on the grave, Diamond Lenore from the third turnbuckle just a month ago. I went to Steve Wilkes and told him that I should be in the slot, which would be much better for us. And he didn't do anything about it. So we know how this goes.
From the third turnbuckle. That was out of nowhere.
You like that? I'm a big WWE fan. I'm talking about old school Saturday morning WWF. Yeah. But even for context, for those of you who are just saying, oh, well, this is cute, coach. You saw the new guy, Coach Wilkes, be the scapegoat. No, he's not the first. He's the long line of many. Trey Lance.
You said it. Hold on. To be fair, you said it before the season started, though. A lot of people are like, oh, it was obvious. Like, yeah, once you got partway through the season, it was obvious, and they went into the bye week, sure. But you literally said it before one snap was played.
Yeah, I definitely saw the way it rolled out. I'm like, dude, he's gonna get scapegoated. He's the new guy. And they didn't let him bring in any of his staff. That's when I smelled a rat right then and there. Like, wait a minute. So he's just there on his own. And then Grant was putting out reports that he really doesn't live there. He just bought an apartment. He's kind of like an implant. And it's just like, bro, they're keeping him here for the setup. That's what he's here for. And Jimmy was a scapegoat. Trey was a scapegoat. One thing that I want to ask is
Jaquoski Tart.
Yeah, Jaquoski Tart was a scapegoat. But one thing I will ask, and I before the show, I said that everybody kind of get your guy or who you think is going to be scapegoated this year. And I'm going to get mine out of the way, just so you guys can just kind of get your mind right if I pick your guy. But in my opinion, John Lynch is going to get scapegoated this season. I think it's going to be John Lynch. Look at the offseason that we had. Adam Peters isn't here. There's a lot of turnover with the scouts. And if you think about it, it wasn't the coaching staff who had a hard time getting the staff together with hiring guys. It was the front office. They hired 2 guys to replace Adam Peters. That's not necessarily a ringing endorsement of knowing exactly how to get a guy in there and basically having somebody ready. This is the first time that we had a draft with the first round. And for all intents and purposes, John has done a good job with this year's draft of rookies. I feel like they've all in some way shown some type of worth. But in years past, sometimes you can look at some of the draft picks that we've had, some of the drafts that we've had where guys haven't worked out. I know we could put Kyle's name on a lot of this stuff, but a lot of this stuff laterals over if we don't win this year. It took a long time. There's pushback from reports from Grant that the front office is split. There's some people that are not happy that they basically had to capitulate to get these deals done with Trent Williams and Brandon Ayuk. And right now, it looks like possibly if there was a downturn in the season, and it came down to somebody being looked at, I think the fans will remember it, just how tumultuous of a start we had to the season, let alone the offseason. And if you kind of just push gravity in that way, I think it's just going to take over and the momentum's going to take over. I think that John Lynch has a possibility of being scapegoated this year. It could be John's fault if we don't win.
Okay, can I ask you a question about this question? Who's scapegoating in this question? Are you talking about what the 49ers will use as a scapegoat, what Kyle will use as a scapegoat, what the fans will use? That's what I'm trying to understand.
No, what I'm saying is that when the season is over and if we do not win a Super Bowl, right?
Mm-hmm.
What we're saying is that what will be the narrative from the fans, and what will the organization do to lean to that narrative?
From
like
Steve,
it's no coincidence that Steve Wilkes was fired immediately after the Super Bowl. That wasn't just, oh, we're getting rid of you. No, that was a statement. That's a sacrificial lamb. They threw him to the masses. So who's going to be the guy, right?
Yeah, got it.
I'll start with you, Ryan. Go ahead.
Go ahead, Ryan.
Yeah.
Where I go?
I think I got to let it play out. Like, if you're saying from who are the fans going to blame this season on, I mean, obviously, they could win the Super Bowl for all we know. So this may not even be a necessary question. Is that going to happen? I don't know. I think we got to let it play out, right? Like, because Grant put out a tweet this morning. 2019, Jimmy Garoppolo. 2020, Nick Mullins. 2021, Jacoski Tart. 2022, Tyler Kroft. 2023, Steve Wilkes. The only one of those guys that was predicted by you, Coach, last year. None of us would have said Tyler Kroft is going to cost his team the season in front of the season, right? So it's very hard for me to give a better answer than that. I'm sorry.
That's cool. Go ahead, Grant, and then you close it out, Jess.
I have a tough time seeing Lynch being the scapegoat because, I mean, the draft was pretty good. Round 2, round 3, round 4, like they had a lot of good picks. The questionable pick was the first round pick, which was probably a Kyle pick. Mm-hmm. So to me, I think Kyle's the one on the hot seat. And this season is a referendum on him. He's the one who didn't know the rules in the playoffs. He's the one who keeps choking with the lead in the second half of Super Bowls. Like, it's on him. And I think everyone knows it. And I think that's why he's going to have to try to find a new scapegoat. And I think last year it was easy to make that Steve Wilkes. But now I don't think, if they don't win the Super Bowl this year, I don't think people will be satisfied if he fires Nick Sorensen. I think he needs to make the case that it's someone else's fault that's more important than Sorensen. And that's why I'm looking at Brock. Eventually it was Kyle versus Jimmy. Like they had, I mean, it was a war between those guys. And I'm not saying it's going to get that bad or bad at all between him and Brock, but because they can win the Super Bowl this year. They could win the Super Bowl and go into Canton together one day. But if they don't, I've seen Kyle be at odds with his quarterback so many times. I could see him trying to, or people in the media who are partial to him trying to turn it around on Brock and make Brock the reason the Niners fall short of expectations, if they fall short of expectations.
So what Ryan's saying is like, hey, we got to let the season play out because there's always something that happens in a game that you just can't predict in the big game, whenever the season ends. And I understand that.
Like, we didn't know Ray was going to do what Ray did.
Exactly. But it's a good point. But for me, I do think it's John Lynch. And here's how it could be John Lynch. They got rid of Adam Peters, who Kyle personally had a one-on-one with last year and kept him in the building. Adam Peters could have left easily last year. He stayed because of his relationship with Kyle. All right. You fast forward a year and all of a sudden Adam Peters isn't here. Maybe some of these, things aren't going great as far as the guys they got in free agency. They just don't fit. Things don't work out. You easily could go the John Lynch route. Now, obviously, I'm not predicting that anybody's going to be scapegoated because I think the season could be a good one. But if it doesn't happen, I think John Lynch is an easy choice. And I think the way it would happen if it went down is it's a mutual. Oh, John wanted to go back to broadcasting. Thank you so much, John, for your services. Oh, it was just, we haven't had a better GM ever on this team. It was phenomenal. John, you're the best. Wish you the best of luck. But really behind the scenes, it was like, John, you're gone. Do you want to save face and go get another job, or how do you want to play this?
Hold on though. If they do that, isn't that also like an indirect shot at Kyle, because Kyle hired John, and John's more of a figurehead general manager than a strong general manager. And if they get rid of John, are they bringing in a strong general manager? Does that mean Kyle has to take a back seat? Does he want to do that? I mean, I have questions.
It puts Kyle on notice is what it does, right? So you can't put Kyle on notice unless you remove John, is my opinion. So if you're going to put Kyle on notice, you can't just outright fire Kyle, but you can get rid of John Lynch.
And that puts Kyle on notice.
Why?
And that puts Kyle on notice.
Okay.
Okay. I don't know. Kyle makes all the decisions. I think everybody knows that. John Lynch has
for sure
done a pretty damn good job, honestly. I mean, we were worried about the draft picks before, after Adam Peters left, and he did a great job with the draft this year. So I just don't understand how it could be John without being Kyle too.
Because they haven't won yet, and somebody's got to go. Like that's the NFL, man. It ain't. And the thing about it is that not only is somebody got to go, but if nobody goes, then they all go. So they got to keep pacing it out. All right. They got to give some type of explanation as to what happened with this process. After signing those guys for what it took, you don't think that the ownership group is kind of is giving John and Kyle the side eye at how much they have to keep? These guys are getting paid contracts like they won the Super Bowl.
Yeah, I mean, I was told that they were unhappy about giving that money, right? I wasn't told that anyone's on the hot seat, but I was told that York was unhappy about having to pay out this money. It wasn't the plan, that's for sure. But the Yorks know Kyle makes the final decision. So are the Yorks going to fire John for things they know Kyle has a final approval on? I find that hard to believe. Now, maybe that's what they tell the fan base, but York knows. You know what I mean?
For sure. But when these things happen, what inevitably happens is if everybody's feeling pressure, blame starts being placed behind the scenes. It's the way that it always works. And Coach said it earlier. I said it yesterday on Grant's show. Like the first thing that Kyle Shanahan said when he was asked about what did he learn from his dad wasn't, oh, it's the system. Oh, it's, developing coaches. Oh, it's, how to win in these scenarios, or, I owe everything to him. It was how to keep my job. Well, how do you keep your job if things are in trouble? You throw other people under the bus. It's simple.
I don't think Kyle wants to be here without John. I think if you fire John, you're messing with Kyle. Kyle, I mean, they tried to hire other general managers. Kyle made it clear he wanted John. They work well together. John's a Hall of Famer. If you mess around with John, I could see Kyle walking away from this team because he could go to any team he wants. Or I mean, I know he's under contract, but
and take John with him.
I don't think he would take that lightly, getting rid of John. And again, like I think it's in Kyle's interest to scapegoat Purdy to a degree. Like let's say McCaffrey goes down for a month or two, and Purdy's play slips. Then Kyle can say, like, look, like you don't have a franchise quarterback here. This guy is a creation of us. And if you give him all this money and think that you no longer need me, well, you're going to be very disappointed in 5 years. So I'm just saying, I think it would be in Kyle's interest to expose Purdy a little bit if they don't win the Super Bowl. Like, look, man, this is the guy that you're putting all your eggs into his basket. No, man, you need me. He's only him if I'm here too.
Well, this is an amazing segue. Go ahead, Ryan.
I'm just saying my money's on a play or a player. If it doesn't work out how they want, it'll come down to a play or a player to me. I don't think they go for John or Kyle. I think those guys are locked in right now.
100%. All right. Well, this is a perfect segue into our next topic. And Grant, you took us right here. So can Kyle Shanahan commit to Brock Purdy long term? Jimmy Garoppolo worked with Kyle Shanahan for 5 seasons. That's his longest tenured quarterback that he's ever coached, making him the longest quarterback. But injuries in the system fit often cause turbulence. Shanahan has historically not committed long term to quarterbacks for a myriad of different reasons, but that's just what it is. Instead of favoring flexibility into his own system. Now that Brock is performing well enough, Shanahan faces new challenges. Can he commit to Brock long term, or is this just a thing where Kyle just does not keep quarterbacks long? I'll start with you, Jesse.
No, I'll start with Grant because Grant has to go literally in 1 minute.
Yeah,
so
go
let
ahead.
him get his take off and then we'll finish the show.
Yeah, I think Kyle has a tough time having healthy relationships with quarterbacks for more than a year or two. I think it gets into unhealthy territories and he gets into self-preservation mode. I I think he might like the idea of working with Brock for the next 10 years. But if there's anything that goes awry, like if they win a Super Bowl this year, I'm sure he would love to work with Brock for 15 years. But if they don't and someone has to take the blame, he's going to be more than eager to put it on Brock. And I think he still feels that he created Brock and he created a bunch of other quarterbacks. So no, I don't think he's going to commit. I think he has a very hard time committing.
So do you think that, so how do you feel like this, do you think anything's going to happen before this contract negotiation? Then?
I think he's going to have a down season coming up this year. He might be a better quarterback, but I think he's going to have a down season in terms of wins and numbers. And it's going to be interesting to see how the Niners handle that. But I'm not good at predicting the future. Jesse, what do you think?
I do think he'll commit long term because, and I've told you this a million times, Coach, behind the scenes, the moment that Kyle goes against Purdy and tries to throw him under the bus for any reason, that's the moment this fan base loses faith in Kyle Shanahan. And we know the 49ers do absolutely pay attention to what the fans think. They've seemingly made decisions based off of that. So, yes, he will commit to him long term. That's a war that he doesn't want. That's a war that he can't win. Brock Purdy is the golden child, and he can do no wrong. And so the moment that Kyle Shanahan tries to scapegoat Brock Purdy or doesn't commit to him, the fans are out on Kyle Shanahan. I'll guarantee
Jimmy Garoppolo was the golden child at one point.
Yes, he was. But I think Brock is a different animal. Go ahead, Ryan, because we got to wrap it up. Go ahead, Ryan.
Touchdown interceptions.
I mean, they made Jimmy Garoppolo the highest paid quarterback in the NFL at the time, gave him, a 4 or 5 year contract? So if Brock does anything short of cost the season, I think they make him one of the highest paid quarterbacks in the NFL. I think they commit to him. I do.
All right, man. Well, I don't think he does. I don't think he commits to him long term. The proof is in the pudding. I don't think that Kyle, his offense gets a little too stagnant, and for his offense to grow, he has to actually give his offense over to a quarterback. The only time that Kyle's actually had done that in a real way is when Matt Ryan took over the offense and he had to give the offense to Matt Ryan, and then it finally flourished. But I don't see Brock Purdy turning out to be a Matt Ryan. And I don't think that Brock Purdy, I think that Brock Purdy is going to be a little bit too much for Kyle to handle because he does want to lead this team. And leading this team means that the offense is mine. You call it, but it's mine, right?
Injury's the only way that they don't, in my opinion.
Yeah.
That's what they need. You know, they need Brock to take over this damn offense. That's what I want to see. Yeah.
Yeah, 100%. Let me knock out these last couple of super chats and then we're going to get out of here, boys. Right here, Wolf Life Wild. Speaking of scapegoats, can we talk about how coaching has been the problem? We have the talent. Purdy saved our asses in the NFC Championship off script. And the last super chat, Brother Bob, thanks. CMC injured and gave him more money. Kyle Levy is also extended. It is what it is.
You missed one real quick from Serenity, a $20 one.
Oh, I'm so sorry.
Great to see all four of you together. Coach, here's a little gift of love. Figure out how we ensure the Niners win the Super Bowl and let us in on that secret. From
Serenity is my homie. Thank you, Serenity. Yeah, thank you so much for catching that, Grant. But guys, this was a great show. I thank you all. Subscribe to the channel. Serenity, I just found this. Thank you so much. Get out of here, Grant. Love you guys. Peace. Have a good one, boys.